Fair enough. All right, good morning. It is 9 a.m. on Tuesday, August 27th, 2024, and I call this regularly scheduled business meeting of the Bonner County Board of Commissioners to order. For the record, I'm Chairman Luke Ahmet, and Commissioners Asia Williams and Stephen Bradshaw are present. And our first order of business is our invocation. Please rise.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we just praise you right this moment for your goodness to our county. I praise you for this meeting. I praise you, Lord, for the goodness that washes over this nation, Lord. But we need your help. We just cry out to you, Lord. This morning we cry out for your, we just need you to intervene, Lord, in the situations with our county and with this nation. And we just call you, Lord, your spirit to be here upon this meeting. We ask that you bless the commissioners, help them, Lord, as they carry out each agenda item, give them discernment and wisdom, Lord, help them seek you in every way, Lord, every way, that you would just speak to them clearly, give them direction today as they carry out the business. And we, Lord, we just love you. We thank you so much for all your goodness, all that you do for us. You're such a good Father, Lord, and we thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Janine. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The purpose of the regular business meeting is for the Board of County Commissioners to conduct the business of Bonner County publicly. Regular business meetings do not constitute public hearings wherein the public has the right to be heard on every agendized item. However, at the discretion of the chair, everyone may be afforded an opportunity to speak on a particular issue if recognized by the chair. Any unrecognized comments or disruptive behavior will be grounds for removal from the board meeting by the chair and may subject the person being removed to criminal prosecution according to law. The purpose for the public comment segment of the Board of County Commissioners business meeting is to enable citizens with issues or concerns which they wish to bring to the board's attention and afford an opportunity for consideration on a future agenda for possible board action. The board will not engage in dialogue with the presenter during this session, but rather may choose to schedule the presenter's topic for board consideration at a future business meeting. Questions may be directed to individual board members for the purpose of clarifying issues or to obtain additional information for the purpose of scheduling the matter for a future business meeting. However, no action will be taken on any issue or concern brought to the board's attention during this session. The chair will not entertain under any circumstances comments derogatory in nature toward any board member, staff member, elected official, or member of the public. This weekly meeting is designated for general external business of the board, including, but not limited to, the consideration of claims, the consideration and approval of minute records, the consideration and approval of proposed ordinances, the review of license applications, the adoption of necessary resolutions, to conduct public hearings, to conduct such other business as it may schedule, and to conduct such business as it may be required by Idaho Code. I would now entertain a motion to adopt the order of the agenda.
Before we do that, I have a couple of housekeeping questions to ask the board. Last week, we had members online with their hand up, and the issue was found to be that the online form for them to be able to give a comment wasn't available to them. Can the board recognize that and then make sure that those online were able to find that form as it was addressed last week to make sure we're not skipping over people's ability to do public comment? Okay, so can someone online confirm that you were able to find that form so that you could give your public comment so that we can address the issue that public comment wasn't allowed? Christina?
Yes, I was able to fill out the form.
Thank you. And then, my second one is on solid waste number 1. The description is coal burn improvement projects change order number 7. Community members have been interested in the change orders. This comes on after a $500,000 enhancement on this same project. Can I ask that the board allow the public to ask questions on this item, line item, because the lack of kind of description here makes it difficult for people to know what questions to send to me to ask during that process. That way it'll help us have the input that the community wants to see on this project before the board votes on it. Is that something we could agree on, board?
Well, how about we try following the actual order of agenda and we get to that, and then when we get into the order of agenda, we can have this conversation according to Robert's Rules of Order.
Well, actually, I'm asking
we're cutting-
I'm asking for clarification, because if you wouldn't agree to it, then I would actually put a motion to actually schedule it for a different day to allow the people to hear what the issue is so that they can filter the questions. So I'm trying to not have a problem by just asking, can we do some housekeeping of this agenda item?
Commissioner Williams, what I had asked was to adopt the order of the agenda, and then once we should be having the discussion if we get a motion to adopt that order.
I'm asking for housekeeping so that if I wouldn't be asking to adopt, I would be asking to amend that item. So if you're not agreeable, that's fine. So I will move to amend the order of the agenda. I'll do it one by one. One, there's a human resources personnel for planning. This is a review of a policy. It's not specific to the individual. I have consulted with legal, and they have agreed that that is not an executive session item. It's to be done in the public, so I'd like to amend that from the executive session. And Bill is available if you have the need to confirm that that item is not an executive session topic. So I'm moving to amend it from executive session.
We don't even have a motion on the floor to adopt an order of agenda, so there's nothing to amend yet. We're trying to amend an order that doesn't exist, which I understand in some worlds might make sense, but until we actually establish.
So I'm not adopting, I'm asking to amend the order. I'm not wanting to adopt it. I'm wanting to.
motion.
I did make a
Okay.
motion to amend it.
Is there a second?
No.
There's no second here. The amendment dies.
There should be you guys should discuss it, because if legal has said this is not an
Motion died.
executive session.
Discussion's over.
There's nothing to deliberate.
You guys, if legal has given advice that it's not executive session, what's the reason that you're not following legal?
Commissioner Williams, I just actually got done checking my email, and I did not see anything from
And I
legal
said
in
Bill
regard.
Wilson is online and available to tell you that. So,
Well-
Mr. Wilson, can you give your legal opinion regarding what we discussed earlier?
Sure. So can you guys hear me okay, first of all?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So yeah, I just took a call this morning before the meeting from Alicia in HR, and we had a discussion about the one or the tentatively scheduled executive session to discuss a planning employee. I think depending on what the intent there is, if it's only about the application of kind of the look back on accrued PTO, then when you look at the language of the two subsections under which we can go into executive session to talk about personnel, they talk about reviewing individual characteristics, either for filling a vacancy or need, or in the alternative, if we're talking about evaluating or disciplining somebody. It doesn't sound like that's the subject matter in this case, since we are not the position is already filled, so we're not talking about filling a vacancy, and we're not evaluating the employee because that's not the subject matter. It's just about the application of a policy. So I actually think that in the past, when we've talked about the application of this policy to groups of employees, we've just done it in a business meeting. And so I don't see any reason to go into executive session in this case. That's kind of the quick conversation I had with HR this morning. And so here's my recommendation would be to go ahead and do that one publicly.
So, Bill, here's my question, because I'm aware of a cursory understanding. When we're dealing with the medical background of an employee with their name, am I hearing correctly that the counsel for the county is recommending we do that in open meeting?
Well, certainly not. If it
That's
involves,
some of the information that is referenced by this executive session.
okay. Well, look, how about we do this then? So if is personal medical information that could be implicated, then absolutely that should be an executive session. What we should do in that case, given that I don't know exactly what the subject matter will be, is we'll go into the executive session, I think, and then depending on the discussion and how that goes, we can decide when we're in there if it's appropriate to remain in executive session or if it's better to have the conversation in public meeting.
Thank you, William.
So I'm
Good
gonna,
choice.
so I'm gonna say that we can't throw up things that aren't accurate. And so what was put forward for this agenda item is we have a policy regarding separation of employment. And when you return versus if you're within the 30-day timeline, what you get if you return within the 30 days. The request is that the person gets to not follow this particular policy. That is not specific to anything related to someone's health. So we should talk about this part openly. And if Commissioner Ahmet wants to talk about someone's personal health information, that part alone goes into executive session. But the discussion on adherence to county policy regarding separation of employment is not something that goes into an executive session, because it's simply about, does somebody get to ignore this policy? And the reason it matters is we have multiple staff members that have asked the same question, and we've denied that. This is money of Bonner County that gets paid. The benefits are money. And so this is an open topic. I don't know why the board would be talking about someone's personal health information, but if that is the discussion that needs to be had, that is not what was given as the reason for this session. So I don't want to have specious arguments of what if we talked about this. The topic is separation of employment policy and benefits. That has nothing to do with an individual. It's just, can we have an exception to that? So that I'm going to revisit the motion that the discussion regarding separation of employment policy adherence belongs in the open, and then anything related to an individual, if there's a reason we're talking about health, that's an executive session. We're
So-
supposed to do it narrowly construed, so if you have to pop in and out, that's fine. So my motion is still to amend the order of the agenda to remove it from executive session, or that we just start the conversation of this has to be started open, and then you go into executive session. Not that you get to just talk about it in executive session, because that's not what the rule requires.
Yeah, well, common sense would tell you anytime it's got to do with an employee that may or may not have some personal information in there, you should go into executive session, find out what the hell is in there, and then, if it's nothing that needs to be protected, you can come out and discuss what was discussed and what the decision is publicly.
But that's exactly
not
what we're
rocket
not
science.
So
supposed to do.
hold on. We've got a motion.
She made a motion.
I know
There is
there's
no
a-
second.
There is a motion. I am not seconding it. There
Nor
is
am
no
I.
motion. There is no deliberation. Is there a motion to I would entertain a motion to adopt the order of agenda as
Mr.
presented.
Chairman, I move to adopt the order of agenda as presented.
I will step down from the chair and second the motion. There is a motion and a second. Is there deliberation?
There is that we have an obligation to be as transparent as possible. An executive session is not to be used to secret away decisions. Things like this impact the whole organization. It's not, even if somebody gets a benefit for one of their staff members, the entire organization suffers from decisions like this. That's why we're supposed to narrowly put things in executive session. Even the lack of even being willing to recognize the rule at the very beginning is not what we're supposed to do as a board. This is not reasonable to do to the organization and to the 400-plus other employees that are in the building that are not the subject of this separation of employment. It's a disservice to them and their supervisors, and you're pitting people against people, and that doesn't create, we have a problem with retention, we have a problem with staffing. We're not able to keep people when we make decisions like this, when we're pitting people against people. So I would urge the communities to stick around for this executive session on separation of employment policy, because the negative impacts is, what about the other people we've said no to? Who's going to come back and say, now we are owed what you did not give us because somebody gave an exclusion that is not represented in this policy? There is nothing in here that says, if A, then B, because then they would have already gotten it. You're asking for an exception outside of a rule. That's not okay for the organization.
It is an absolutely abominable.
Follow your decorum thing. Follow your decorum.
Am I allowed to
Follow
speak?
with your decorum and standing rules
Okay,
of
so
not.
continue.
being
It is
negative.
absolutely abominable to consider discussing an employee's personal health, let alone if you talk about all 400 employees' personal health issues in public. I refuse to do so. The reason that I have some information about this is because the director came and asked me what to do, and I said, let's have an executive session so we can discuss the construct specifically with this employee. There's no decision been made because I haven't talked about it with you. I haven't talked about it with Commissioner Bradshaw, so that way the board could hear the background in regards to this employee's personal circumstances and their presentation, which is perfectly appropriate for executive session. There's no decision, there's no motion, there's nothing attached to it. A director brought forth a concern from an employee that involves their medical history, and some of it I'm very sympathetic to, and I'm not going to have that conversation. I don't have an idea. What I suggested to the director was bring it to the board, present it to the board in regards to this particular employee. But I'm not going to present this employee's circumstance in the open or any employee's personal history in the open. That's the exact purpose. If the board chooses to grant what they're asking, so be it. If the board chooses to deny it, so be it. But that individual and every employee deserves, one, to be heard in regards to their concerns, and two, for it to be done in a manner that is delicate and respects their family's privacy, which is certainly what this particular matter involves. So we will have our legal counsel present via distant, who will keep us on the straight and narrow in regards to that. But Idaho code is very clear.
Federal law is very clear on PPI.
That if we're talking about an employee's personal information, there is a manner to do so to protect their privacy.
And so you're talking about nothing of what I said. I said, if you're
That's because
talking
you're
about.
talking about nothing
Well,
about what
what
it's
I-
about.
That was my deliberate.
What I
folks,
said was, if we have to talk about someone's private medical, that absolutely can go into medical. But when you're talking about just someone's desire to not have to follow the policy, that does not belong in an executive session. So it's a specious argument to say that I'm saying, let's discuss someone's medical openly. That's none of what I'm saying. All that I'm saying is to ask the county and the county taxpayers to address separation of employment policy is not specific to an individual. And I said that discussion should be in the open. And if you guys want to talk about the medical of an individual, that absolutely goes into executive session. So instead of making a specious argument, why don't you address the separation policy itself and then agree that that portion does in fact belong in the open?
Thank you.
Because that is the public knowledge to hear. And the medical aspect alone goes in executive session. Can you agree to that? Because at no time did I say someone's medical goes into the public sphere. I actually said, I don't know why we as a board are even talking about someone's medical, that person can talk to HR about their medical. So would you agree that review of whether or not someone has to adhere to county policy is open to the public? Because it's not specific to medical. Would you deliberate on that aspect
I'm
of
not
my
going to argue
argument?
with you, and that's not the definition of deliberation. I've said my piece.
Well, the definition isn't argue. I'm asking you to provide a response to what I'm asking to be in the public sphere.
Is there any further deliberation?
Yeah, I'm asking you to deliberate. So my
Mr. Chairman,
request,
based on the
No.
information
Well, we
before
have
us, I
a mo-
move
we-
to approve the consent
Hold on,
agenda
hold
as
on. Hold
presented.
on, Mr. Bradshaw, Commissioner Williams. There is a motion and a second. We haven't even we're trying to adopt the order of agenda first. There was a motion, now we're in deliberation. Ms. Williams has made her contention that she would like there, I have nothing further to add in deliberation. Do you have anything to add? Do you have anything to add?
yeah, so
before I
why
the
call
vote?
for more deliberation if you won't deliberate? It's, again, it doesn't make sense. And what I'm asking you actually helps us to avoid open meeting law violations, which this board has an obligation to pay attention to. So I'm asking you to have a discussion on the policy review that belongs in open meeting per the counsel that you just received. So that's what I'm asking. You called for, is there more deliberation? I am asking you to deliberate that aspect of what I've said.
Thank you very much. Roll call vote.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
The agenda has been adopted. I would now entertain a motion regarding the consent agenda as presented.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second the motion.
There is a motion and a second, and before we get into, there's 3 confidential items from the sheriff, one for $23,204.63, one for $14,000, one for $24,636.97. Item number 4 and 5 are also from the sheriff's office. Item 4 is the outfitting of a new truck from Frontline Communication Systems for $19,623. Item 5 is the Better Together Animal Alliance, the annual impound fees. And for clarification, I'm also going to look at Sheriff Wheeler just to make sure that I get this right, and so there's no confusion. This is to pay for FY24, and this contract expires on the last day of September 2024, which will be FY24. This is not moving forward, so there's no confusion about the FY25 budget. I'm going to speak that Sheriff Wheeler is nodding his head, that I think that I said that in the manner that, because I was confused this morning and had to do a little bit of checking, the clerk squared me away. So that is to close out this year's contractual obligation, and the sheriff will deal with next year's contractual obligation within his budget. Item 6 is with solid waste, which is the Dufert and Prater Valley seal coating. Dufert was with Selkirk seal coat for $12,515.92. And Prater Valley was with black canvas for $10,680 for a total of $23,195.92. Is there any further deliberation regarding the consent agenda?
Nothing.
With that being said, roll call vote.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
The motion carries. Thank you. And our next agendized item is with Clerk Rostow.
Good morning, everybody. Morning, Commissioners. Before I get started, I want to make an announcement. Jessica Stephanie is our new comptroller. She's also my chief deputy, and she was made that a couple weeks ago. She took Nancy Twyman's place, but anyway, I want to stand up just so everybody can see her face. And she's been doing a fantastic job. She's the brains behind auditing now, and so you can ask her all your questions. Okay, Commissioners, before you, I have fiscal year 24 demand batch number 24, totaling $96,206.42. Of that, the big ticket item is the self-insured medical, and that was about $68,000. For your approval.
I move to approve payment of the FY24 demands in batch 24 totaling $96,206.42.
Seconded?
There is a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Next before you, as we're getting close to the end of this year's budget, there were some budgets that were very lean on their D budget and a couple other items. And so I have 4 budgets before you to use the contingency fund for. First, I'm starting off with veterans. Veterans needs roughly $3,000 in their D budget, their benefits budget, so they can make it through the end of the year and we still make payroll. And I can read the resolutions. They're long, but I can go through just one and then do the same. Anyway.
Would the board like Clerk
Happy to do that.
Rosedale to read the resolution? And these resolutions are found online in the packets for the general public's information.
It's what it is we're using contingency fund. It has to be unanimous vote when we use contingency fund. And 311605 allows us to use that for expenses that are reasonably unforeseeable at the beginning of the budget, which was a year ago, and it does not increase our tax. In a nutshell, that's what that is. And so the veterans would be moving $3,000 from the contingency into this current year's Veterans D budget, line item 122-6150, which is medical. Actually, that is medical insurance.
Can you say what the balance of our contingency is? Because I know we've used it a couple times. Do you
It's
have it?
about $340,000 right now.
And we started off traditionally
With 400.
With
We're
400,000.
down to 340. I know that other people have talked about using in the future to the tune of 30 to 40,000, but right now we're at 340,000.
We have used contingency quite a bit more this year than we have in past years.
Yes and no. Some we haven't used it very much. Some we've shot the entire wad on October 1 when we did our fiber optic.
Okay. Based on the information before us, I move to approve Resolution 53 authorizing Bonner County to open the 2024 budget and move $3,000 from the general fund, 5% statutory reserve, and increase veterans budget line 0012265150 medical insurance by $3,000.
Seconded.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation from the board?
None?
Roll call vote?
Yes.
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 The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next before you, the Treasurer's budget is on track to be negative by roughly $14,000, mainly due to the benefits budget. So this is asking to shore up the D budget to the tune of $14,000. That would be put into line 103-6150 medical benefits or medical insurance, and that also is coming out of the statutory reserve, general fund.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve Resolution 54 authorizing Bonner County to open the 24 budget and move $14,000 from the general fund, 5% statutory reserve, and increase the treasurer's budget 0010365150 medical insurance.
Seconded.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any further deliberation amongst the board?
None?
Hearing none, roll call vote?
Yes.
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 And Commissioners,
Motion carries.
would you mark what resolution number those are? I don't know if you've.
Yeah.
We've got it.
Oh, you got them? Okay.
Yes.
Next before you, I have HR's budget is on track to go negative by roughly $23,000. A lot of that has been to advertising and drug tests and that kind of a thing. This is to shore up the A, the B, and the D budgets. The A budget, the salaries by $3,000. That's line 119-6060. The miscellaneous expense by 119-7860. And the medical insurance by $17,000. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. I got them out of order here.
It does say medical insurance, 17,000.
Yeah, 17,000, I did the line items. So the 119-6150 is medical insurance. The 119-7860 is the miscellaneous, and the 119-6060 is the salaries, totaling $23,000.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move to approve Resolution 2455, authorizing Bonner County to open the 2024 budget, move $23,000 from general fund contingency and increase human resources budget, line item 00119-6060, salaries by $3,000, and line 00119-7860, miscellaneous by $3,000, in line 00119-6150, medical insurance by $17,000.
I second the motion.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation amongst the board? Hearing none, roll call vote?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. The last one is risks budget. They're going to be roughly negative by $19,000 by the end of fiscal year '24. They need to shore up their B, which is the operating expense, and their benefits budgets. Out of that, so we're going to increase their background checks by $3,000 and their medical insurance by $16,000.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve Resolution 56, authorizing Bonner County to open up the 2024 budget and move $3,000 from general fund, 5% statutory reserve, and increase risk budget line 001276830 background checks by $3,000, and line item 001276150 medical insurance by $16,000.
Let me make a correction on that. On the suggested motion, that should be the entire total of $19,000 from the general fund contingency, not $3,000. The resolution is correct. The little memo, the front memo is incorrect. So I'm sorry, that's my mistake. So the memo should read, move 19,000 from general fund and then split it up the way you properly said.
Okay,
But the resolution is correct.
Resolution is correct.
Very good.
gotcha. Thank you.
Is there a second?
So do you want me to correct it so it's a clean record?
Please.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve Resolution 56, authorizing Bonner County to open up the '24 budget and move $19,000 from general fund 5% statutory reserve and increase risk budget line 0012768830 background checks by $3,000 and line item 0012765150 medical insurance by $16,000.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation amongst the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioners.
The motion carries. Thank you, Clerk Rosedale. Next, with elections, Mrs. Terry Schultz.
Hi, good morning. Terry Schultz, Elections Manager for the record. The Bonner County Elections Department is seeking approval to destroy records in storage longer than the Idaho state mandated records retention period as per Idaho Statute 34-217. This has been approved by legal.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve Resolution 2024-57 that allows the Elections Office to dispose of the election records listed above.
Seconded.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation amongst the board? Hearing none, all in favor? The motion carries.
You.
Thank you, Terry. Our next item is with the Waterways Advisory Board. And please introduce yourself for the public, sir, when you come on up.
Good morning, Parks and Waterways, Matt Zoller. Looking at the appointment of member to Bonner County Waterways Advisory Board after a special meeting to consider applicants. The Waterways Advisory Board recommended the appointment of one new member, Winthrop Taylor, to complete a 2-year term on the WWAB. Winthrop Taylor would serve from August 27th, 2024 to August 26th of 2026.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, based on the information presented before us, I move to approve Resolution 2024-58, appointing Winthrop Taylor to fill a vacant position on the Waterways Advisory Board and complete a 2-year term beginning August 27th, 2024 and ending August 26th, 2026.
I second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation amongst the board?
None?
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zola, and glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Next, we have the airport. Dave, are you out there?
I am. Good morning, Commissioners. I have 3 items for you this morning. They are all grant offers from the FAA AIP program. First one is an offer for the taxi lane and apron construction at Priest River Airport. This grant offer is in response to our application to the FAA for funds to construct approximately 500-foot long by 25-foot wide hangar taxi lane for aircraft storage. It will also expand an aircraft by 140 feet to accommodate one additional tie-down space at Priest River Airport. Construction of this taxi will allow for hangar development of 4 conventional hangars and 1 T-hangar site with access of the west. The airport has experienced significant growth, and all of the vacant hangar lots are leased for hangar development. Other benefits include adding 1 aircraft tie-down location to expanding the existing tie-down apron to the north. I recommend accepting this grant.
Based on the information before us, I move that Bonner County accept this grant and that the chair sign administratively. Legal has reviewed this.
Seconded.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation amongst the board? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries.
Thank you. The second item I have for you is another grant offer. This is for the airport's Geographic Information Systems Survey at Priest River Airport in support of updating the airport layout plan. The grant offer is in the amount of $194,607 and will allow us to conduct phase one of the data collection needed to update the airport layout plan, which is needed prior to FAA funding for improving that runway. The AEGIS survey will identify obstructions surrounding the airport and enable a threshold siting analysis based upon obstructions. Updating the ALP will identify non-standard conditions to create a safer airport for the flying public. The FAA AIP program is funded solely through airport user fees, passenger fees on airline tickets, and taxes on aviation fuels. I recommend accepting this grant.
Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move that Bonner County accept this grant offer and that the chair sign administratively.
I second the motion.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation amongst the board?
Legal has reviewed all of his grants, I'll just say it that way.
Yep.
Yeah, the FAA is usually a little particular. With that being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries.
And my last item for you is a grant offer from the FAA AIP program for phase two of the taxi lane and apron construction at Peace River Airport. All those details are the same. It was necessary to divide the project into two phases in order to accommodate available funding from the FAA. I recommend accepting this grant.
Based on the information before us, I move that Bonner County accept this grant and that the chair sign administratively.
Seconded.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation amongst the board? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries.
Thank you, Dave. Job well done.
Thank you. And next we have solid. Have a good one, Dave. Next we've got solid waste with Director Bob Howard.
Morning, Commissioners. Bob Howard for the record. On April 25th, 2023, the Board of County Commissioners awarded SNL Underground Incorporated the contract for Colburn Improvements Project. The project total was $6,521,140.51, including change orders 1 through 6. This final change order is for an increase in the amount of $89,426.76 for a total construction cost of $6,610,575.27. These are for the following changes: a manual transfer switch, $34,251.37. Existing armor upgrades, $30,064.87. And existing scale upgrades for $23,679.92. And final time and materials, $3,652.97. And a final quantity reconciliation of $2,222.37. This leaves about $85,000 left in the loan amount. And so the reason for the transfer switch is the crane in the Colburn transfer site is electric over hydraulic. So when there's a power failure, the crane is disabled. So we install the transfer switch so we can bring in an emergency generator if need be to power the crane to continue to work. The existing armor upgrades is rehab of the existing tipping floor, which as you dismantle to do a rehabilitation or an upgrade, you find hidden issues with structural issues and things like that. So that's what that is for. The scales, they're 20-year-old scales. When they unplugged them, they plugged it back in. The scale sensors and the readout did not work because they're old. There's no parts there to replace it, so we have to replace those parts of the scales.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us.
I have some questions. So are you going to go, or can I ask questions?
I said okay.
I was trying not to interrupt you because we both started at the same time. Okay. So I'm going to go one by one. Manual transfer switch, you said it was already what it is. So why does this one, when I look at this, I'm trying to anticipate the questions of people that have asked me about this project without knowing whether they're going to get to answer.
Okay.
When you add up change orders plus the $500,000 from your budget where you're going to change the tipping floor into this same project, what's the total actually of this project? And are we exceeding what because you're taking the bid of the lowest person when
Correct.
it comes in. But now we will have done 7 change orders with a $500,000 enhancement to the tipping floor. So when I read your response to my question on that $500,000 concrete change, it's similar kind of to the explanation on this transfer switch. concrete is better than asphalt, but we know that at the beginning. So how are we not bidding at the beginning for what's right versus change orders, which is changing the project as a whole? And how is it that the manual transfer switch wasn't looked at the beginning? And that's part of what, when this comes on and it's not as descriptive, the community is wanting to know, some of these things they're not new, unanticipated for a project. They're just, it's almost like we're saying you have the budget for changes and not actually looking at the project from kind of the beginning to the end. And they have questions on how we're managing the project. How do we have changes at this level of magnitude? And one person has asked me, how do we know that it's the last change order? It's almost like we're anticipating it. And I don't know on this one because I have questions of, why do we have so many change orders for this? Because did we change it so much that the company that won the bid was no longer the lowest bid was another question.
So pre-COVID, we went out to bid for this project. And so during COVID, the RFPs came in and it was twice as much as was anticipated. So we went back, we had to redesign the entire project. So we broke into smaller projects and smaller change orders to make sure as we go through, we don't exceed the budget, the amount allowed, because of the cost of materials. And with inflation, we want to make sure we kept under budget with our loan, which we have done. That's why we did that.
But these aren't inflationary changes. These are just changes to the overall project. We put on asphalt and then say concrete's better and we have the funds, so we're switching it. So the reason for the change isn't an unanticipated change to the project. It's just a change to the project. And that's where I would rather people who are asking about this get to ask their question, because we're not changing because of increased labor costs. We're not changing because we were quoted this dollar amount for concrete and it raised. We're just changing the whole project. That's where community is asking about this particular project, because what you described as the reason, the changes that are being requested for the 7th change isn't COVID, it related anything. This is an old switch, which the switch was old when we bid for it. So why didn't we bid for the repair of the switch then? And it'd be one thing if it was when we bid for it, now that we need to put it in, it's $10,000 or $30,000 more. That's not what the bid is. So that's where, I don't know the answers, but I know that's what the community is wanting us to give responses to on this project because of the significance of these change orders. And it's hard to anticipate more of what people want to hear on this. So this is where I would like the people to be able to ask their own, but it's kind of the summary of what the questions I'm getting on this project and another change order on this project.
Some of those are engineering questions I don't have the answer for.
Okay.
At this time, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move that the county approve S&L Undergrounds, Inc., change order number 7 in the amount of $89,426.76 for the manual transfer switch, existing armor upgrades, existing scale upgrades, final time and material, and credit for final quantity reconciliation. I further authorize the chair to sign the change order.
I second the motion to advance it for discussion.
There is a motion and a second. Now let's hear the deliberation.
Well, before the board deliberates, can I ask at this time now, can we allow the community members who have questions on this project to be able to ask their questions?
I'm not going to change that at this point, no. There's a motion and a second. Deliberation is here amongst the board.
Do you remember telling me to do it right here?
I did. So you've made your request, and now I'm giving you my response. And in regards to this, when we listen to this, and I'll just put this out there for the record, because we've had multiple conversations about the Colburn Ways project. So the genesis of this project is that the county, with a prior board, went to the voters and said, we want to make some improvements. And they asked the voters to approve a certain budget amount. And the voters did. And when they went to the voters, they had an idea of what was going to be accomplished at the time that they put the bond out. However, through supply chain disruption, COVID, and a variety of different things, and we can look at the 20% inflationary pressures over the last couple of years, the costs versus the creation have changed in regard to projects. But what remained exactly the same was the amount of funds that the voters approved to spend on the Colburn Solid Waste Project. So we just heard Director Howard suggest, actually even suggest, he stated they had an initial plan, but the costs changed. So then they had to cut that plan back. So then when we see this, and I have asked about this, and we did have emails about this, and I would encourage members of the public to ask beforehand what they are trying to accomplish being solid waste. Are they trying to achieve some of those safety and efficiency concerns and improvements that were in round one? But because of the supply chain disruptions, inflation, and other, that was unable to be done. This is not just a change order that is out of the blue. This also has to meet federal reporting requirements. So this is all utilizing funds approved by voters to get the most bang for the taxpayer dollar. There is nothing secretive in this. There is nothing tricky in this. This is just trying to take advantage of these funds in regards to how much growth the county has and how much more garbage we are creating so that we can safely do our legislative requirement, which is to deal with the garbage.
I think if we can recognize that this project has gone through multiple changes, that it's reasonable that in this meeting, when we're asking for another change, regardless of an individual's perspective, that the community who comes here to participate be allowed to talk about and ask questions on an item that is, again, having another change. Because there is no, my response in this was, I'm trying to anticipate the questions that people have since it wasn't clear what was happening. But I'm not making a judgment on anything other than the fact that we have had 7 change orders. We just moved $500,000 into this project on this next coming budget. People have more questions. People weren't allowed to speak during the budget discussion, just at the end. And what happens when we push the public out, then you're losing interest in the public. But this room is filled with people. And as I look, I can see, I know the people that have reached out to me over this project that have questions. Why wouldn't we as a board want the public to feel good about the way in which we are spending their money on a capital project? And the way you do that is by answering their questions, not saying, email me for the emails that I've exchanged, because then we're burdening our whole public records. Why not just say they're here? If you got a question about the project, it's on the agenda. This is a big project. One of the things that I mentioned about the budget yesterday was one of the elements of doing budget by GFOA requires that you actually take a project like this and give some reported of, here's where we are, this is where we're going, and this is where we might end up, so that the public has the communication from the county, not treating it as, if you really want to know, anticipate what we're not going to tell you and ask about it later. Because what happens is they walk away and they say, well, they already made the decision, so what's the point of doing all of the work? That's not how local government should work. We have a rule to encourage the participation of the public into what we're doing. The public doesn't feel like they're participating if we decide and say, ask me how I decided after. It's not reasonable. So I again am asking you to allow the public to ask their questions on this. We're going to vote on it, but I'm asking you to hear what they have to say on this project, because we're losing the opportunity to learn. There are people out here that know this topic way better than we do, and we're not hearing from them. And when you're not willing to listen to the public, it gives that conspiracy of you have something to hide when you won't let me ask you how the money is being spent. This is not being spent because of inflation. That is not even what he has presented. This is an old switch. We're going to upgrade. And so the upgrade has not to do with the cost. It's just we're changing it. That's fine. But if the public has a question on it, they should get to ask it in this venue. That's what this meeting is for. So I'm asking in this section for you to allow the public to ask its questions about this project. That's what my request is.
During deliberation, the public.
Spencer, Bonner County Engineer. Spencer, what do you got?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, would you tell us who you are for the record, please, Spencer?
This is Spencer Ferguson, Engineering Department, for the record. Just to shed some light on what's going on. So the manual transfer switch was included in the original bid. It was included in both bids. It was part of Schedule B of the Colburn Improvements Project, which we did not award. The reason that we're adding it is as Bob described, we have an electrical machine out there that we need to keep operating all the time. So we had thought of this, we'd wanted to include it originally. It was actually going to be an automatic transfer switch, but this is a good thing for the county. It will allow our operations to continue. The armoring, the existing waste transfer building has been used since 1994. When we originally bid the project, we were unable to inspect completely all the steel structural support members that are in the building and in the chute area because of it had 30 years of buildup of garbage, debris, and other things. It had to be pressure washed, removed. And once we went to remove those, we found that we had to replace some things that we didn't expect. A lot of the cost there was man hours, welding. There's a good amount of money in there for steel, but a lot of it's time and welding time. So the scale readout, we didn't realize that the scale components were as old and outdated as they are. So when the contractor was rehabilitating the existing waste transfer building, they took those scale transmitters and components off, the electrical components off the building so that they could clean and rehabilitate the building. When they mounted those things back on, they didn't work. So the contractor searched for a similar product. We talked with Northwest Scales, who is the service provider for our scales out there, and they recommended that we update the transmittal system and the printout system so that the scales will be functional. So that the scale readout issue was something we didn't realize was an ongoing issue. According to Northwest Scales, the waste management crew out there had been doing their best to make sure that these things were working, and they themselves were unable to help us kind of update those components as we have them in place. So they were necessary to replace them. The total loan amount, the total project amount that we've spent, or we've closed the loan out at $8.1 million approximately. So we had two meetings, public meetings, BOCC meetings, where the board agreed to send approximately $600,000 back to the federal government that we did not end up using. We'll end up spending the majority of that 8.1 million, less the value that Bob spoke of earlier.
Is that 8.1 inclusive of the 500 for the change to the chipping floor?
The one for next year?
Yeah.
No.
Thank you, Spencer. Is there any further deliberation amongst the board?
Yeah, I would ask, are there people here that have questions on this
Well,
project?
This is ridiculous because
I-
this project is like 5 years in the doings. And any
Yeah.
commissioner that was doing their job and following these projects would understand where it is and what it is. But some people just like to run their mouth and hear their
Well,
felt talk.
Mr. Bradshaw, that's not helpful either.
Well, I don't care if it's helpful or not.
I
It's
get
the
that,
damn truth.
But we are not opening the
Well,
deliberation.
here, the reason I ask that is the ordinance actually says that a sitting commissioner can ask people in the audience if they do have something they want to
Not during
offer.
deliberation.
It doesn't actually say one way or another. Spencer provided a lot more information on this than we had before this started, which is why I think it's reasonable to allow people to ask questions. And so you guys can try and shut it down, but you guys are not following the decorum and standing rules from this side of the table.
According to who?
According to
Hold on, let's
You're making them up
standing
as you
rules.
go?
Mr. Bradshaw,
Amend them
Commissioner
like you
Williams
want
is
'em?
speaking.
No,
Let's
that's
let-
bullshit.
Well,
This is all
that's-
bullshit.
Hey,
You know?
Hey, we're in deliberation.
No, we're in a business meeting trying to get this stuff done, and somebody wants to talk about shit that she does not understand.
That's
has
not
no
helpful.
intention of trying to understand.
Not helpful.
Well, it is what it is.
But we
She
need,
can talk her crap, I can talk mine. So there we have
Okay,
it. Now, let's continue on.
all right, so going, Commissioner Williams.
Call for your vote. It's
Perfect. Roll call vote.
abstain.
Yeah, aye.
All right.
Thank you.
The motion carries. Thank you, Bob. Our next agendized item is with Nick Zoller of Emergency Management, and just for the general public,
Skip planting.
there is a Nick Zoller and a Matt
Zoller.
Zoller. Oh, did I skip? Oh,
I don't have
I'm
that.
sorry. Director Gabel, Planning, yeah.
And it actually has a resolution number.
Yep.
Morning, board, members of the public, Jake Gabel, Planning Director. Hopefully this is less exciting.
Let's see.
Before you, I have a request to open the B budget for this fiscal year, so 23-24. So Idaho Code 31-1605 allows the board to open up the budget given specific circumstances. It's shown in the memo I submitted. So the planning department has received unanticipated revenue in excess for the budget year 24 of $31,800. That's specifically in the line item of vacation rental fees. That's line item 00123-4423. And we request that the additional funds be added in the amount of $29,000 to this fiscal year. That's budget year 24. These funds will be used to pay for the short-term rental software renewal cost, which is contracted at $29,000.
Okay, I move to approve this request for additional funds to the Planning Department FY 2024 B budget in the amount of $29,000 as Resolution 2024-59.
I second that. I don't have the same thing you guys have. I second that.
And this was reviewed by auditing. It just has a signature.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation amongst the board?
Have none?
It's much nicer to hear revenue versus expense.
Thanks.
Thank you. Roll call vote.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes, ma'am.
The motion carries. Thank you. Now, Mr. Nick Zoller with the bonfire program. Thanks, Nick. Thank you, Jake.
Good morning, Commissioners. Nick Zoller, Fire Mitigation Program Manager for the record. Today I have 4 agenda items. The first one is the attached contract is between Bonner County and INW Land Management LLC to provide project work for the treatment and/or removal of hazardous wildland fuels at location in compliance with specifications for the bonfire program. There will be no county match as this contract will be funded from an IDL Department of Lands grant.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve and sign the contract for hazardous fuels treatment between Bonner County and INW Land Management LLC for project work on the bonfire program funded by an Idaho Department of Lands grant with no county match.
Seconded?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation amongst the board? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries.
Second item is another contract is between Bonner County and Boundary Mulching and Excavation Incorporated to provide project work for the treatment and/or removal of hazardous wildland fuels at locations in compliance with specifications for the bonfire program. There will be no county match as this contract will be funded from an IDL Department of Lands grant.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve and sign the contract for hazardous fuels treatment between Bonner County and Boundary Mulching and Excavation, Inc. for project work on bonfire program funded by an Idaho Department of Lands grant with no county match.
Seconded?
There is a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation amongst the board? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries.
The attached contract is between Bonner County and Grants Trucking LLC to provide project work for the treatment and/or removal of hazardous wildland fuels at locations in compliance with specifications for the bonfire program. There will be no county match as this contract will be funded from an IDL Department of Lands grant.
Based on information before us, I move to approve signed contract for hazardous fuel treatment between Bonner County and Grants Trucking LLC for project work on the bonfire program funded by an Idaho Department of Lands grant with no county match.
I second the
We
motion.
like no county match.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation amongst the board?
Have none?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries.
The attached contract is between Bonner County and VIGS LLC to provide project work for the treatment and/or removal of hazardous wildland fuels at locations in compliance with specifications for the bonfire program. There will be no county match as this contract will be funded from an IDL Department of Lands.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve and sign the contract for hazardous fuels treatment between Bonner County and VIGS LLC for project work on bonfire program funded by an Idaho Department of Lands grant with no county match.
Seconded?
There is a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation amongst the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Zoller. Our next agendized item, I'm going to check twice. Sheriff Wheeler.
Good morning, Commissioner. Sheriff Darrell Wheeler. For the record, before you is a renewal of the Kootenai Tribe Grant Housing Agreement. The Kootenai Tribe of Idaho is entering into an agreement with Bonner County Sheriff's Office to house their male and female inmates at the Bonner County Detention Facility in accordance with Idaho Code, Title 20, and the rules and regulations of the Idaho Jail Standards. The tribe will reimburse Bonner County $90 per day for each inmate housed in the detention facility. This agreement will be in effect from the date of execution in all parties until November 30th, 2025, and may be terminated by either party with at least 30 days' notice, and this has been approved by legal.
Chairman, based on the information before us, I move to approve the adult detention agreement between the Kootenai Tribe of Idaho and Bonner County to house male and female inmates at the Bonner County Detention Facility. Tribe will reimburse Bonner County $90 per day per inmate, with the agreement being effective from date of execution until November 30th, 2025.
I second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any deliberation amongst the board?
Sheriff Wheeler, I got a couple questions from community members. Is this an increase over the last year, and does it cover the cost of housing the inmates?
It is not an increase, it's exactly the same. The cost of inmates, that daily cost is calculated with a formula of the cost of electricity, the cost of housing, the cost of staff, food. The solid cost that we have on each inmate when they're staying is about $6 a day for food. The rest of it, the facility is being run by the same amount of staff. And I should also note that in 2021, we had 32 beds that were charged. In 2022, there were 12 bed days.
Mm-hmm.
And this last year, 2023, there's been 0.
Okay.
So it's not a burden. We're actually making money when they do come in and when we do house somebody that's taken into custody by the tribe in Boundary County.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Is there any further deliberation?
I have none.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Thank you, Sheriff. Our next agendized item is with Ms. Teddy Lupton.
Good morning, Teddy Lepton for the record. I have two memos that I have for your consideration and possible approval, and it's for the same item, but I need the board to make a choice. So I'm going to read the first one. The Facilities Department is seeking approval for the purchase of a 2024 262D3 skid steer and a 2023 85-inch SR 321 snow blower attachment from Western States. The cost of the 2024 skid steer is $67,997.50, and the 2023 snow blower attachment is $11,750. Both items, which total $79,747.50, will be paid out of the 00118-9480 capital construction. This equipment is necessary for the removal of snow at the EMS Station Office Complex, EMS Station 1 Office Complex, and these funds were budgeted for construction of the DMV in Suite 101 of the Administration Building. So that is the purchase option. The second one is the Facilities Department is seeking approval to proceed with the lease buy option of a 2024 262D3 skid steer from Western States. The lease agreement would be an annual payment of $15,587.32 for 5 years, with a payment of $1 in the 6th year for ownership. With this option, the cost of the skid steer would be $77,937.60. $9,540.10 of that amount would be finance charges. This lease does not include the purchase of the 2023 snow blower attachment that would be needed additionally. So I am seeking your consideration for approval of one or the other.
Okay, question for you.
Yes.
On the lease, does it work like our equipment that we lease from Cat and John Deere, where the warranty extends to the end of the lease?
Yes.
Okay, that makes a difference. Otherwise, it's got really, really short warranty on heavy equipment. 90 days on a $500,000 road grader. Lease is much better.
The purchase is a 1 year warranty.
1 year warranty?
On your, to fairly consider both options, did you speak with auditing about using the capital construction amount?
Yes.
And so you got approval through the auditor to do it that way. But on the second one, you don't comment about where does the snow blower attachment? Didn't we just get rid of one? But where does snow blower attachment come from? Because you still need that piece. Is that gonna, would you, if you leased it, you'd be able to just buy the snow blower out of your budget?
I wouldn't be able to out of my budget, no.
I don't have that $11,000 concrete up there. Where would we get the blower from?
It would have to be additionally from the capital construction. So it would be in addition, it would have to be purchased. You cannot lease the snow blower attachment.
No, I understand that. I'm just wondering why this second one doesn't include where you're going to, how you're going to get this, because you have to come back if we pick the lease
Because I
option.
honestly forgot to put it on there.
Okay. For me, there is value with leasing with respect to warranty, especially when you look at repairs.
And I did not have legal look at the lease because I didn't know which way we were going, so that would still have to go to legal for them to approve that as well.
So I think that this should actually leave and come back with a legal review with the snow blower attachment on it, with the cost, so that we're addressing it all, because you still have to come back. Because we
One
can-
way or the other, yes.
That's my thought on it. Commissioner Bradshaw, what is your thought on the two options?
You like the lease as well?
Yeah, because it costs so much to repair those things. And when you lease them, they come out and fix them.
Well, to be an alternate perspective, which I'm comfortable with, whichever way the board decides to go. We currently have funds in the capital construction project from the building behind us, which is opening tomorrow,
To actually do that.
to actually purchase both the skid steer and the snowplow. And it would be done and we are in interesting budgetary reality, so we can either purchase it, be done, and then also looking at it with the total cost would give $10,000 for approximately for maintenance over the, was it a 4-year lease?
Yeah.
Over the 4-year lease, which I have no idea what.
You'd save the 9,500 in finance charges.
You'd save that, and that also doesn't, that's not inclusive of the snowplow. Personally, I would suggest purchasing,
Just buy it,
because
get on
that,
with it.
but that's me. I'm comfortable saying you want to wait and come back for the lease. I like the idea of owning it because snow's not going away and there's an awful lot of things, and we're looking at adding more responsibility, but whatever the board chooses.
So on this, it's not just about the leasing, we don't have that much floatable money, and even right now, you have people wanting to take money off of this capital improvement project for other areas where within auditing, there's the discussion of, can we use it for this versus that? And so sometimes the reason you lease is always if you have the money to pay up front and you reduce the cost, that's reasonable. But when you're already limited in your budget, sometimes the lease with an option to buy is more fiscally responsible because we need to have access to money that is extra on the other side. And so this is actually one of those cases where you guys were here, we just opened contingency budget up how many times for the next budget? There is going to be some money left over from this project. We don't know once you go over there what someone's going to find that you might need. Reasonable to look at leasing, especially if something breaks, which inevitably once we hit 1 year and 1 day, it looks like it will. It's the cost to fix it. And so are we in a position, that's the difference of not just buying it now, but planning where the county is going. We have unknown issues that could come up on a building where we have capital construction that we know will be left over. But if we spend it all on a skid steer because the budget of this department can't cover that cost, where are we at? We're going to open contingency again, aren't we?
Well, one of the other beauties of it is, if we purchase it with the capital money, that is non-county tax dollars that came back to the state. If we lease it, it's going to be county tax dollars paying for it. So,
No. Oh, I think Mike probably has an idea.
Can-
We built that with tax dollars.
Yes.
yeah.
Can we ask she was going
But
to.
aside from that, you have the funds in capital construction to cover the expense of purchasing the tractor. We did not budget $16,000 for the next, at least not in fiscal year '25, to make that lease payment
Right, it's not in the
as
budget.
well, just FYI.
So it's not
It's in
budgeted.
that bucket, but it's not in this bucket.
Correct.
Use it out of the bucket you got.
Except
It's
that we
totally up
have
to you.
very high reserves in this department also.
Yeah.
That on some of the lines, their reserve lines are better. So regardless, either way, it's not complete because we don't have the lease with a legal review with the snow thrower so that we can do a true compare contrast and what leaves the county as a whole in the best position that we can be in, knowing that you're going to have leftover money. It's, to me, a premature decision because we don't know and we haven't reviewed the lease. So my vote would be bring it back with that information with a legal review and then a review of capital construction because we have gone through Tribal Consistency Fund, we spent all of the ARPA interest, and then now this is,
There are no more buckets.
there are no more buckets to pull from. So sometimes you have to save a bucket for an emergency. That's my concern in the next cycle, so.
So is there a motion, let's put a motion on the floor, whether it's, we have an incomplete lease, we have the opportunity to table, or we have the opportunity to purchase with the existing funds. I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move to approve the purchase of the 2024 262 D3 skid steer and the 2023 85-inch snow blower from Western States for the amount of $79,747.50.
I will step down from the chair to second the motion. There is a motion and a second. Let's deliberate.
I think the comments that I made earlier are reasonable and appropriate that should give the board pause from making a decision on this. I think we should make fact-based decisions. So I would like us to not move forward with approving that. So,
You got anything to add, Commissioner?
For me, regardless of what legal would say on the lease part, it's not in the budget for next year to lease it. So kind of makes that one moot. So we're either buying it today or we're not buying it today.
All right. Roll call vote.
no,
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Lupton. And now we are into the District 2 Commissioner discussion.
I'm going to skip to, where is the general, oh. So, Mr. Arns, and we have to say that Bill Wilson gave me a response on the trail. The trail is done. The documents are going to be sent to legal to review. Once it's sent to legal and review, then it comes to the board to vote on of accepting the easement, and you guys can walk all you want to. So
deal.
that's your report on that. So thank you to Bill Wilson and Louis for letting me bother them over and over on that issue. So I'm going to clarify something on Commissioner chat. So I don't read the B, but I hear they made an article over Proposition 1. And so one of the things I said at Central Committee was I'm not talking about open primaries. I'm not doing a commissioner chat about open primaries. So I've gotten a lot of emails from people saying, why are you talking about open primaries or not talking about open primaries but Secure Idaho? My issue is there is a cost to Bonner County associated with Proposition 1. And so that was the discussion. I don't know what they wrote, but what they wrote is not what I said. And I don't fact checked, and they did not contact me for a comment. And so what I did say to everybody that's interested in that discussion is I'm going to post it once we get a very clear fact-based comment, because the impacts to our clerk's office is going to be significant if it passes, that we need to know what that cost is and what it looks like for our election integrity. So everybody is welcome. It doesn't matter what your political side is, but I'm not picking sides. I'm saying we need to know before we come out the gate, because we're voting on this in November. Some other people sent a request of what was I talking about with Government Finance Office. So I brought the books. I did this a while ago, but Government Finance Office Association offers literature to your counties and specifically elected officials regarding how you do your budgets, how you do capital budgeting and future forecasting. The reason that I made the comment that my hope is that the next board looks to doing our budget in this fashion is it provides a lot of benefits to the county. Winning their award isn't the whole reason that you're doing it. It provides more of a communication dialogue with the community. There's aspects of their budgeting program that you put forward that kind of deals with some of the things that we saw today, especially when it comes to capital projects and future forecasting. And so my comment was, this is a standard, and once you reach a certain population, you have to do it. And so my mind was, we should start doing this. It's a foundation. This is not an opinion of Asia. This is a good one. This is where you would have to. And so when you look at even other counties around this that do it, it provides so much more than what the commissioners are doing. So it isn't the clerk needs to, it's the commissioner's budget. The commissioners need to say, hey, I want to do this. It's beneficial to every staff member that has to do a budget because it helps out our auditing. If you learn the concepts of the budget language, we're not doing that in our county, and so we're not helping the people that we elevate to mess with our budget by giving them a resource so that they can be successful in helping plan their own budgets. You've seen how many times we opened up for contingency because we are going towards the negative. How do we help our county do a better job understanding the financial statements? This is a resource that will help the county, and it isn't created by me. The clerk's office is going to get a membership for this. You can also get your own membership. There is a whole, like on some of them, you'll see an elected officials guide, and I point to people that are running for office. There's a whole toolkit for commissioners on how to understand what you're doing. That's what I'm advocating for when I say that it has nothing to do with where we were or where we're going. We're growing as a county, and we need to start planning. We have to plan for 911. Some of you may have heard in Spokane that the city actually declined to move to their call system because it hasn't been upgraded. We have a need to upgrade our own system, but we're not planning to do that. And that's what, the way, if you look at the way these budgets are done, it requires you to do it. It requires us to take a look at our staffing issues and to provide, what are we doing? One of the things that we don't do in Bonner County is oftentimes if you have positions that are open within 100 days of you doing your budget and you haven't filled it, and I'm going to say, we're not talking infrastructure, let's just say outside of EMS and law enforcement, there is a review to see should we be actually reserving those positions at 100% or reducing it to free up money in the budget, because this desires us to not have big reserves and buckets so that we're not shifting money around. So that's what I was referencing when I made that comment. Ongoing issues and concerns we're going to have to address is our Fair Board water and sewage. Thank you to our Teddy for working through the problem that came up with that. But one of the things that has to be addressed is the county as a whole is paying a bill of over $8,000 for people filling up water over there. That's redistributing it throughout the county. We have to look at, should that be a pay per use, but also where do people find that resource? That's a significant bill that the county is taking on. There is still the workshop pending. We do have a director of Parks and Waterways. The current board wanted a workshop regarding their bylaws. We need to get their bylaws addressed. We had a really good discussion at the last meeting regarding actually looking to Kootenai County to capture some of the things that they've upgraded that they're no longer using that we would be buying, to include buoys. So I'm appreciative of having those leads, but if we're going to do that workshop, it needs to happen. Otherwise, the request is going to be just that the bylaws come back and we just vote on the bylaws as written. So Governor, people have messaged me about the Thursday governor. It's not on his website. I did reach out to the governor's office regarding Capital for a Day is not listed on their site, and it's not listed on the Priest River site. I did message Jake, who is the governor's assistant, regarding Capital for a Day. He agrees it's not up there. We're both asking them, why is it not advertised? So I'm going to keep you guys posted on that. Sorry.
So the Association of Counties put out a blast, and from Seth Riggs, we could link that to our county website so people could see the agenda and all that stuff.
Oh, they didn't update their own website, but they sent it to IEC. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know about that, but we received an email from
Okay,
Seth.
so I'll post it the way I post to you guys too, and then maybe we should link it, because people have asked about Capital for a Day. And I made the comment that I'll be meeting with the governor before that hour to talk about the dam itself. And so before tomorrow evening, people send questions. And I know you've got your email to me, but if you have questions on Albany Dam, to send those before then, so I have time to review it and make sure I can ask questions if I need clarification from the asker of a question regarding that dam. He's set aside special time to address concerns regarding the dam and the impacts. I mentioned that Russ Fulcher gave comments about the impact to our infrastructure with delays of repairing that. So with that, any questions from the public regarding my report? Hopefully I didn't miss anything. No questions? All right, thank you.
All right. Our next agendized item is public comment, and our first public commenter today is Mr. George Garrett.
Hi, George. Good morning, Commissioners. George Garrett for the record. First, I would just like to say, Commissioner Williams, I don't think anything that you've ever done or said is BS. Commissioner Oman, I want to thank you, now that it's official, for stepping down from your commissioner position and allowing somebody to fill that position that's going to give it their full attention. I think that that was a very honorable and ethical thing to do, and I thank you. And while I'm at it, let me just say, I want to thank you for your past military and civic service. I think you've been Teddy Roosevelt's man in the arena, and for nothing else, I think that you deserve respect for that. I want to thank you for not taking away the Zoom option. I want to thank you for restoring public comment. And I hope that this next chapter in your life, you are successful. Commissioner Bradshaw, there's still the rumor that you have sold everything and you're planning on moving to Texas. Is there a chance that you would do the honorable and ethical thing and step down so that somebody who cares about this community, is in this community, can fill your job? Thank you.
Thanks, George. Our next speaker is Mr. Rick Kramer.
So can we switch? She needs to leave.
Oh, do you want to let Jennifer go first?
Yeah.
Okay. This is not Rick, this is Mrs. Jennifer Kramer.
Jennifer Kramer, for the record, Bonner County resident. I have a few comments. I did send a couple emails last night to you guys, but it was probably just too late to respond. And I probably should have included Clerk Rosedale. On all the budget overruns, which totaled like $59,000, I would like to understand, it said there were unforeseen expenses, and I get that there were medical insurance and this and that, but what caused them to be unforeseen? What was the expense? I guess I would like more understanding of, because that's, and then how is that contingency fund being replenished? We keep dipping into it, but how do we replenish it? And then I have a question, comment. The planning revenue, the unanticipated revenue of $31,800, $29,000 of that is being applied to the 2024 budget to pay for a software renewal. What happens to the other $2,800? There was no mention of that. And had they not gotten this unforeseen revenue, how would he have paid for that software? Is that coming out of contingency funds also? And then I guess I appreciate Asia's, I won't say arguing, discussing, pushing to talk about the policy regarding the PTO and the exemption to policy, talking about that in the open meeting, because I think any exemption that's granted to employees from what our policies state should be visible to the public. We should know what's going on and what you guys are creating exemptions for. And then just a comment on the whole facilities, buying a snow blower or skid steer and a snow blower for that building makes no sense to me, because we have to plow this building.
It's for all, it's for
all
everywhere.
facilities.
Yeah, they're gonna use it at the court, they're gonna use it for all of Bonner County.
Okay, so why, they didn't say that, so why did
I'm just providing that clarification.
why did the addition of that building suddenly prompt the need to spend $79,000 on snow removal equipment? That's the way it was presented. And then it wasn't really budgeted for that. We took the budget from what was going to be the DMV and decided let's move it to snow blowing. And I appreciate Asia's comment that we're spending all of our contingency money. Perhaps we should save that money for some other unknown that comes up, because county budget is not overflowing, or money doesn't grow on trees, so thank you.
Contingency budget does not get refilled after we spend it, unless someone made a donation to the contingency budget. Couldn't they do that? That's the only way.
We call that taxes. Mr. Kramer.
Thank you, Rick Kramer for the record. So I would like to talk about the waste facility, Culvert. And listening to the director of that, he's not here now, I guess. It's really embarrassing when he says that they can't see the steel because there's debris there and they need to power wash it. But they're going to do this facility and they don't take the time to clean it up and see what it is they're dealing with. And the same thing with the scale. And now it's costing us all this money. I mean, this is just terrible leadership. Go ahead. You want to say something? I'm listening. No? Okay. So the county commissioners, and I'm going to include you in this, Asia, seem to have this attitude of, we have the money, so let's spend it. And this whole meeting has just been spending money. And the conversation has been, well, we have the money in this budget over here, let's spend it. That's our money that you spend. You look puzzled. Go back and watch this meeting.
Every Tuesday is about spending money.
I understand that, but but you're spending money that you didn't have. And then on the airport, you want to allow for more hangars. Do you know that the hangars that are there, the people that lease those, they don't pay any property tax on those hangars? Those are millionaires and billionaires that park their jets in there, and none of those hangars at any of the airports pay taxes on it. Did you know that? I'm asking you a question.
Did you know that
If you're
Sandpoint's
paying
airport?
lease or rent, you're paying taxes.
It's the
just
second
owner
highest
passing
grossing
in.
airport in the state of Idaho that generates approximately $60 million. And people are able to feed their families from the jobs that they have there. This is, thank you, Mr. Kramer, for your comments. Our next individual is Miss Judy Labrie, I don't want to butcher your name.
Sorry.
Okay, Miss,
Thank you.
okay, Judy L. I don't want to butcher your name. Next is Christine Moon.
Same. I thought
Oh.
we needed to sign in.
Oh, well, nope, but thank you, Christine. Online, we've got Christine Logue.
She requested I write her name down because she couldn't find the form, so if she's not on, she said give her 3 chances to hear.
Are we good?
Yeah, I was just
I just wanna
explaining
make
to you
sure.
that she was an online person, not in person.
Yeah, fine, okay. Is there anybody else? Mr. LaFay?
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Glenn LaFay for the record. I just want to share that I'm a little bit concerned about the amount of change orders on the solid waste project. I know they're to be expected, but for me, they send up a few red flags. Also, I'd like to comment on, we've had a lot of discussion about the solid waste program, but with 7 change orders, we should, as the public, be allowed to comment on those change orders during deliberation. Speaking with a lot of people out in the county, many of them have concerns about the efficiency, the exposure to garbage on the floor, the no free pile, that's a big concern, and also safety in general is many of the comments that I'm receiving. Also, the confusion on the amount of stickers we received. I received 1, and other people have received 2. So I'm just concerned about all that. And also, can we use remaining funds on this project to address some of these concerns and issues that are coming from out of there? That's all I have to say. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. LaFay. Ms. Anderson?
Hi, thank you for taking my call. This is Christina L. Nicholas Anderson, Bonner County resident. I actually had raised my hand when Asia had said she'd take residents' concerns, but I guess you didn't see me. So I'll address the whole board, but this is specific more to Asia. I thank you for engaging with the public and addressing letters, issues, and concerns. So I guess I'm wondering more why you haven't answered my letter and the 46 pages of evidence of alleged fraud at the fairgrounds I sent you on or about July 8th, 2024. I'd like a status update as to what you're doing about my letter and its contents. And further, what is it that you as a board member are doing to manage the fair board that you guys appointed?
So Christine, first, your issue was addressed with respect to the Fair Board. There was an audit that was completed on them. And so when I ask for questions, I leave it specific to my District 2 report. I didn't see your hand. If you have a question that you want to ask me about what I reported out on, I will. But what your last comment was to this board was you wanted to see the board put your item on the agenda, and you addressed that to the chair of the board. And if he didn't put your concern on a fair audit on the agenda, I would ask that you follow up with him. So your issue on fair auditing was addressed.
So it wasn't fair auditing. It was specific, the letter that I sent, specific to an incident of fraud that has not been brought forward. So
that is not something that hasn't been addressed. Your allegation of fraud at the fair has been addressed. They were audited, and you have sent that over to also legal for a review. That's not for me to jump in on. And again, you requested your item be put on the agenda, and you look to the chairman to do that for you. If he didn't place that on the agenda, there's a proclivity within a particular group where you guys say things and you want me to put it on the agenda, but yet your issue is really with the other two not putting it on the agenda. How you can direct it to Commissioner Ahmad and say, will you put my issue on the agenda to discuss? I responded appropriately to your allegation of fraud on the part of the fair. It was reviewed, the fair was reviewed, and your issue did go over to legal. And so there isn't anything for me to do on that. If you still want it on the agenda, Commissioner Ahmad and Bradshaw are here to do that for you.
Would you be willing to put it on the agenda, Commissioner?
No, I'm not willing to put it on the agenda because I already did. And if you recall, the last time you brought forward issues on the fair, I did put it on the agenda. And then what happens? They don't discuss the issue. So it isn't whether or not I want you to be able to discuss it. You need to get another commissioner that wants to hear your issue. As you've all seen, even in this meeting, when I'm asking to discuss something, if the two of them don't want to discuss it, it doesn't get discussed. So it's a straw man to say Asia's not putting it on the agenda if you're just asking me. Why not in this moment ask the other two to put it on the agenda and discuss it? I will absolutely discuss whatever is reasonable and appropriate about your topic, but me putting it on the agenda doesn't achieve anything if those two will not allow that discussion to take place. So it's disingenuous to say Asia's not putting it on if me putting it on doesn't do anything and they won't talk about it. So ask one of them and I'll be more than happy to give you the second on a commission board to discuss your issue. That's reasonable and appropriate. Ask one of them to do it. And I'll absolutely support that effort.
Thank you.
Christina?
Thank you. Yes.
This Commissioner Bradshaw, any commissioner can put anything on the agenda at any time they'd like to, as long as they get it posted in time. But when it comes to fraud or anything criminal, the edge of our authority stops where we refer it to legal, and then it is out of our hands from there forward. There's absolutely nothing we can comment, investigate, or do about it. That is up to the prosecutor and law enforcement. That does not fall within our wheelhouse.
The appointment of the Fair Board does, though, so I was hoping you guys would address that. And also the fact that on September 4th, they're requesting increases in fees around the fairgrounds. And if there's fraud occurring, I'm questioning why there would be a fee increase and wondering what your positions will be on that. Do you make that decision?
That would be something you would have to shoot to the prosecutor's office.
The Fair Board deals with Fair Board fees, Ms. Anderson. That's under their particular wheelhouse if it's in regards to anything under their authority, because they are a unique institution in regards to Idaho state law. And they will have a hearing in accordance with state law where the members of the public are able to go and have an absolute right to comment as it is a hearing in regards to whatever proposed fee. With that being said, it's only if it's above 5%. So there's some quirks.
And who makes that decision?
The Fair Board makes the Fair Board fee decision.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, is there anybody else online? All right, and we have a Mrs. Helen Newton who just arrived.
Do I speak from here?
You can speak from either place.
All right, I was home watching you.
Oh, lucky you. God bless you.
I decided to come by. Helen Newton, a resident of Bonner County for 77 years. I've been voting now for 62 years. So I've seen a lot of commissioners come and go. The best, in my opinion, ever was Jim McNall, and some here who will remember him. Then we had the Bud and Larry show. That only lasted 2 years, fortunately, but they did do a lot. I was thinking the other day about my 8th grade graduation from Northside School in 1955. Our teacher and principal was Byron Cronick, and he said to us, "You need to come up with a class motto." We're eight pretty unsophisticated country kids out there. We didn't even know what a motto meant. So he said he'd suggest one. So he suggested this: perseverance in spite of adversity. Well, we could all figure out what the two big words meant, but we couldn't figure out what the phrase meant. Well, it didn't take long, and it applies to each and every one of us at some point in our life. We will face adversity, and we are the ones who will decide whether we will persevere or move on. So my husband couldn't be here today. He's traveling to Coeur d'Alene for medical treatments every day, but he would join me in saying, thank you, Commissioner Ahmet, for the time that you've put in. We believe that you have experienced perseverance in spite of adversity, and we appreciate what you've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Newton. Is there any other member of the public before we enter? Oh, yes, ma'am, Mrs. Arndt. But just because I know who you are doesn't mean you don't get to tell the rest of us.
Okay, Jennifer Arn, Bonner County resident, and I want to say thank you for your diligence in making sure that this trail is finally getting done, the Camp Bay Trail. And what I would ask you to do is not let up just yet. Before these documents are registered dedicating the trail to the public, that you work, you, the people representing the people of Bonner County, that they get the best possible option that we can get out of this. This was an unbelievable treasure that was given to the developers. Don't let them dictate the terms of this trail for the public. We are not, the public is not part of their CC&Rs. This needs to be something that works absolutely the best you can get at this late date for the people. So please be part of it. You are in charge, not the developers.
And we all have to go to the bathroom.
I'm with you, Fred.
So on that, Jennifer, that report is going to be given to Bill Wilson, and
Good
Bill
outburst.
Wilson will, it's going to
No
go on
outburst.
the agenda for the board to vote on, so you will be able to,
So
to
now would be
unders-
the time to put in all the things that should have been in that agreement for that horrible trade deal. But, you know, now would be the time.
it will come before the,
No,
it will come before the board for a vote.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Going once, twice. Oh, Mr. Fred, I'm with you.
You bring your guitar.
Also on the beach, we need a bathroom on the beach.
Now you're just pushing it.
Okay,
It was
Mr.
trail.
Mr. Dupree.
I'm John Dupree, a resident of Bonner County, and as you know, I've been visiting here as a concerned citizen, and I have to congratulate you guys, gals, the board, on the discussion with facilities. What I experienced here in that discussion was what I've been hoping for ever since I've been coming here, an open dialogue, open minds, discussing various points of view, and then hearing from the peanut gallery, those of us sitting in this side of the table. And I really sensed that this was democracy at work, what government should be doing. And so I would love to make a recommendation that you take what you just did in the facilities discussion and make that standard operating procedure, because I think all of us would enjoy the process so much more and have a lot more pride in our county leadership because we love one another.
Thanks, John. Anybody else? All right, we're taking a 5-minute recess.
Okay, Peanuts, we going?
Go.